Welcome back to Reiki Cafe Radio. I'm your host, Christine Renee, and today we have a special guest. We have Juanita with us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so we connected, and I just love all of the things that you've got going on in your world right now, whether it's shamanism or Reiki or the herbals that you're working with. And one of the things that we hear, what we're doing at Reiki Cafe University and Reiki Cafe Radio right now is really kind of focusing on the chakras as we head into the holidays. And this week we're on heart chakra, and this is really all about life, living life, like so much about our physical human experiences. And I really wanted to bring Juanita on because she has suffered through chronic illness, and she is in a world of neurodiversity and has struggled with grief and all of the like real world things. And so I just wanted to invite you on today so that you can share your story and highlight how you have found a space to thrive within all of the stuff.
Right, absolutely. And I really appreciate that. I love, first of all, Reiki has definitely been one of those tools that I have worked with that has been so important. And, when we talk about that heart chakra, it's really how could I open myself up in that space to do this work? Because you really do. It's not easy work. It's why not everybody does it. Um, you have to find a space in which to get real good and vulnerable in. And that really starts in our heart. It's where we do a lot of that release work, those things, those attachments that we have, because we have those emotional attachments with them, not just physical. We have all of those things and they're bound up in this space. And this is a space that we protect. Like, you build walls around it, especially when you've been through traumatic events, no matter how you define trauma at the end of the day. And so working in this space is really necessary for all of us, but especially as you're moving through a new way of being. Because let's face it, when you've got some sort of chronic illness, you're having to say goodbye and you're having to grieve like this person that you were, all of these ideas, your future. Some people, just their day to day, they have to grieve because it is so vastly different. And making space for that and doing that work for me, I find, is really the first step, is opening up yourself, finding ways to connect through your heart to you and different versions of you. And so I really love, the idea of spending some time there and doing it with intention of, and crafting a space in which to do it. Sometimes we don't talk about, the space you need to be in and do it. It's not just, you don't just jump into these things and do them all willy-nilly. You
Right.
want to make sure, you want to make sure you have some sort of support team, whether it's people that you're friends with, whether it's your therapist, your medical team, or your coaches, your practitioners, somebody that can help you craft a space that you can feel safe to do this work, because you need to be in a safe and stable place to start pulling back those curtains. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
absolutely. So tell us a little bit about your story. How did you do that? How did you step into a space of to be vulnerable, to pull back those curtains and do the healing work for you, or the grieving work for you, or the self-acceptance?
It's
So,
true.
right?
It's true. And I have to be honest, for a long time, I thought I had done that work because I had done the therapies. I'm a childhood abuse survivor. That's something that I've had to move through. I've done all of the talking and, the pulling back of, this was my childhood. And what I was still struggling with was the physical part of it. And, how, people are like, just listen to your body. And I'm like, what does that even mean? Because if you've not had an example of what your body feels like when it feels safe, then how are you supposed to know what safety feels like? And so it was really, having to learn my body. And so when I lost my sister in 2020, my youngest sister. And I think that was probably the event that shook my world up, honestly. And it made me step back and really start questioning, where I was, talking to somebody else recently, and we talked about how there's a lot of us at our ages and our 40s, 30s and 40s that are, you know making these changes or realizing, oh, maybe we're not where we're supposed to be. And I think, we used to call it, this midlife crisis, and I hate that word. And what I've realized though is we're having these realignments where we find ourselves, something happens in our life, whether it's chronic illness, or there's a death of something, where it's causing us to go, where am I? Is this the person that I want to be? And going, maybe it's not. Maybe the person I've become isn't all the things that I wanted. It's the things that I had to do to survive or to take care of those that I loved, or because that's what society said I should be, or that's how my parents raised me to be, instead of figuring out who is it that I actually want to be and working towards that. Sometimes we don't even know we have a choice to be able to do that, and to do that as many times as it takes to get on the path that feels right for us. And so that's what I did.
I love that because I mean, I can definitely relate. Like we have these opportunities and turning points. And I feel like in our modern day and age, those opportunities are more societally acceptable to like quit your career corporate job or to, like we are able to make more significant changes in our life without a huge societal uproar or family uproar than it was, let's say 50 years ago. Like we had such stagnant roles and boxes that we needed to fit into. And we're now living in a time where it's like, oh, I can make a choice and a change, and I can make different decisions that are going to be best for me or best for my family. And I love that we're able to start to awaken and see that we have more choice. We have more choices. Like everything comes down to, what choice do you want to make? Do you want to stay in the cycle and the pattern, or do you want to make a shift? And what does that shift look like? What was that shift for you? What was that turning point choice for you?
I did. I stepped away from a career that I had had for 18 years, one that I grew up in, one that I had found that I was identifying my sense of self worth and who I was with the job, because that job is what helped me learn how to use my voice, to become empowered in my own capabilities. And I had kind of mixed those things up together and thought they were the same thing. And so stepping away from that, when you define what you do based who you are based on what you do, there leads to all sorts of issues at the end of the day. And for me, it was being able to step away from that, and that wasn't an easy thing to do. I'm very big on, I want stability, that's my safety net. And so being able to move away from that, that's scary. And what am I going to do? And so what it did is it gave me the space to really get back on track of what I wanted. Like, most people think about, when I retire, I'm going to go and no, when I retire, I want to make sure that I'm at a point that I can be an actual registered herbalist, and so what are all the things that I need to do to get there? And so in doing that, that helped me realize that I can. So I do have a 9 to 5 again. And what that showed me is it showed me that that's a job, and that's okay, because I'm also there not just to earn money, but these are the people that I want to serve. Like being very intentional with what I want to do and what I do with my time, and to have a purpose behind it that goes beyond just the money, just, climbing some ladder for who knows what reason. I was very specific when I decided to go back in. And it was part of it is, this is my testing ground. Like, this is part of the work that I'm going to be doing, because these are the people that I want to serve, because that was me. That was me not knowing that I had other choices. I didn't know how to build safety so that I could experiment and try new ways of being. I didn't even know it was possible to still do those things. I thought I just needed to wait to retirement. And then people started dying all around me, and I realized I might not get to retirement.
Yeah. Yes. Well, and I think, especially in the country that we live in, we have that scarcity that holds us in this fear model of going, if you've got to take care of yourself, no one else is going to take care of you. So it's making those big shifts and changes in our careers it's a scary thing. I remember when I did it myself and had my dark night of the soul, and it was very much like, I can't do this anymore. I cannot live this way anymore. I'm going to die if I continue on this path. You know,
It's true.
and sometimes we have to get to those really difficult places to have it be so absolutely stark. Like, you have to change, you have to change. Like, there's no other option. And so you face your fears in that. And then there's also, like, I want to invite our listeners to go, like, you don't have to go down that path that far.
Yeah,
Like, let's make choices now. Let's make the choices before it gets to that scary place
it's
of
true.
my survival and going, I have a choice today to decide, do I want to continue living this way? What would it be like if I trusted the universe more to provide me the clients, the money flow, the new opportunities, the new resources, and to play in that space while we move through our own healing journeys. So I definitely had a massive healing journey at that point in my life, and I know you did as well. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that specific journey, as well as how you were introduced to the herbals and shamanism and all of the things that really helped support you in coming to this place of balance. So it seems like.
Absolutely. So, interestingly enough, I am a third generation herbalist. So, I have my grandmother and my great grandmother were both curanderas. So, they were both traditional Mexican healers in their communities. My great grandmother did more ceremonial, more shamanic type work, whereas my grandmother was very much about herbs. I remember being a child and being a horrible patient. I'm pretty sure that I dumped my tea in every houseplant I got the opportunity to do so. I know she finds that quite humorous now that I have my own that does not like tea. So we've had to find new ways to be able to work with medicines. But going through and actually doing a lot of ancestor work is how I uncovered all of this information. And that was actually part of my path as well. It's what led me to shamanism at the end of the day, and being able to reconnect in that way. And it has been probably a really real foundation and part of my journey in defining what healing meant to me. Because if we look at healing as I want to be what I was, that's not always possible. And it's really, so you really have to define what would be considered, healing. Where do I feel like things are better? And that really started from finding safety within at the end of the day. And doing works with my guides, with my teacher and my power animal. And, that was all really helpful in being able to connect me to that divine spark that lies in all of us. And one of the beautiful things that I really love about shamanism is it's not about your religious beliefs. So it's a practice that's open to so many people to help connect us with our own divinity, our own access to divinity, and helping open that healer that lies within all of us. And I find that's a really beautiful thing. I'm an animist, and so it just pairs really nicely with my own belief system, my own, look at, life and nature and how everything is connected. I found so much solace in nature, in healing. It brought me to closer with my plant teachers, helped me develop. I take do formal herbal education. I've always known that I was going to work with herbs. I just thought it would be, when I retired. And it's not. Like, I'm out there, I forage my own medicines, I process, I make them. I use Reiki and sound healing when I'm doing my medicines. I sit with the plants and I meditate with them. I have some that are guides, and it's just such a beautiful practice, and just opens up a different perspective on life and ourselves at the end of the day. Learning that my body, people say that you're not your body. And it's like, what does that even mean? As I've learned and I've developed, I understand now how it all connects. Like, yes, I live in this body, but this body is made up by diverse organisms that are intelligent in their own right, that make decisions to keep this whole thing functioning. I need to learn to get to know them. What do they need to function? How can I better support them so they can support me? And really, engaging in that way and looking at nature as that example of how to live in a diverse environment, how to thrive even when it's a struggle sometimes. Because you see those flowers like the dandelion, and there's like, it's all concrete around them. And here's this one thing just growing out and blooming into a beautiful flower. It is possible to thrive in adversity, but we have to look around at beings that have been here so much longer than us sometimes to see those examples. We humans like to think that we've got it all figured out, but we're still figuring out things about our own that we didn't even know. So I find that, incredibly amazing to be able to look at those things and give myself some grace for not knowing it all and be experimental with myself. And that's really been, I will say, the one of those foundational things that I tell people is, be willing to look at it from that type of explorer view. You're exploring yourself, your internal and external, how you engage with these environments. And that's what I did. Like, I didn't just say, you've got this diagnosis and that's just you now. It's like, okay, I've got this diagnosis. Let me find safety. And safety for me at that time meant prescriptions and, just whatever to help me feel better. And once I got to a point that I started feeling stable, I was able to start experimenting. Well, how does this make me feel? And eventually, after a couple of years of experimenting, I don't have to take pharmaceuticals to manage my chronic pain anymore. I work with herbs. I work, with, my body. I do a lot of meditation, mindful movements, mindfulness in general, really being able to connect with myself and know my energy and honor those limits and those boundaries that I need to have for myself, not just other people.
Yeah. And taking the time for that self-discovery is so important. I
It
love
really
that.
is.
And you mentioned earlier how you're an animist. I would love for you to just, because I am as well, and I love teaching that in part of our shamanic Reiki practitioner training, but I would love for you to describe what that means to you. For most of our listeners, I'm assuming, might not know what that term is. And for me, it is a huge lens in which we look through life. And
Mhm.
so I'd love for you to kind of describe in your own words what it means to you to be an animist.
Absolutely. I love it. For me, it means that I believe that all things have spirit. I even believe that inorganic items like, this, for example, can have spirit because those things can pick up the energies that we pour into it. And you have enough energy within something, it can be an entity in its own right. And carry knowledge and understanding that it can impart on us. I also believe that we are just one intelligent being in this world. There are so many intelligent beings in this world that have the capacity to teach us. And so, when I say all things have spirit, I mean, our stones hold spirits. They've been here longer than us. Trees have been here longer than us. They hold such knowledge. So for me, that's the interconnection of us and all of those things. It also means that, I look to communicate with those as not like you're here to serve me or I'm here to use you. When I come to like my plant, my fungi allies, or my other animal allies, it's more like, hi, I'm Wani. Like, so I go, and if you go out foraging with me, I'm stopping every 5 seconds to say hi to things because I am introducing myself to them and I take that very seriously. And so that's kind of, as an animist, those are kind of my viewpoints. I don't feel like it's really like complicated. It's such simplicity. It's probably the oldest religion. We were all animists at one point. And, I love the connection. It brings me great joy. And I think if we looked at the world around us in that way, that perhaps we wouldn't have some of the issues that we have today.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I definitely see it in my house, in the way I talk to my house, talk to my plants. And like my son who's 17, and a very 17-year-old, and he's threw his jacket and he hit one of my tall, beautiful plants in the living room. I go, you better apologize. And he thought he hit his sister. I'm like, no, you hit the plant. How dare you? She's an integral part of this family.
True. Who do you think is
Right?
filtering this air for us?
Right? Totally. And I love how, it's almost has become easier because Hollywood has displayed certain attributes of animism to make it more like the movie Encanto, or the movie like The Addams Family, where the mom has to give coffee to the toilet so the toilet doesn't gurgle through the house anymore. Like
Yes.
it's these little things that I'm like, yes, there, right there.
Yeah.
That's a
I,
great introduction.
I feed it, I have like this little thing in my kitchen and I put like little food and I feed my house because it has energy too. It's protecting us. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And so when we have that energy awareness that our house is here to provide protection, our house is here to provide a safe space for us. And when we respect it, like I bought a house and I've never owned a house before. And
Yeah.
I treat it like this is my sanctuary space. I'm going to clean you and I'm going to take care of you and I'm going to love on you in a very different way than when I used to be as a renter, because I have
Yes.
so it's even those little mindset shifts of like, I take pride in this home and I want to love on it. And I know if I love on her, she's going to love me back by providing the safe sanctuary protected space for me energetically.
It's true. And I love it because I always talk about it in ways of I look at everything as a micro and a macro. And so for me, our bodies are how we treat our bodies is how we treat our communities, our external communities. And when we look at our house, a place that houses us and holds us, it's no different than this house that holds us. And how we can treat those, sometimes we don't understand that that's how we end up treating ourselves. And so it's another reason for me, like, why I think I would encourage more people to have that lens because we inadvertently, kind of treat ourselves like we treat our house or, our other things.
Yeah, absolutely. And recognizing that our physical body is our container. And if how do we talk to ourselves? How do we feed ourselves? What media do we consume? What environments do we put ourselves in? What people do we interact with? Like all of this is a reflection of our self-worth.
Yeah.
And I would love to know how you have incorporated in your healing journey of the like your plant allies, your like the herbals, because I feel like when we can step back and go, I'm going to honor my body by connecting with this plant ally, and I'm going to nourish my body in this time with this plant because it's connecting with me on a deeper level. That's when I feel like it's the commitment to self-love. It's not
Yes.
just the plan. It's like this commitment for self-love that really starts to help shift our reality of going, this is a reflection of how we are respecting our body and loving on it. And I know for me, when I was really sick, I would say negative things to myself, like my body is broken. It's never going to get better. Even like I have a toenail fungus for years. I'm like, that's where all of my ugliness lives, right there in that toe. We say these things to ourselves. And of course, we're just going to manifest more of that when that's how we treat ourselves, and going, actually, what if I gave myself Reiki every day? Or what if I did a foot bath every day? Or what if I as an act of self-love and self-respect? And then the universe sees that as like, oh, she learned. Right. So tell me how that looks like for you.
So for me, I would say, so one of the things that I do is I always have a theme every year. And then I put these like note cards all up around my house for that theme so that I can see them, whether it's like on the door jamb. So as I'm going through a door, I see it, or if it's around the mirror that I have in the bathroom so that I see them, out of the corner of my eyes. I've even written stuff, right on the mirror so that I can see it as a reminder. For a while too, I had a habit of every time I walked through like a doorway, I was, cleansing, grounding, and like shielding real quick, just to wipe everything off. We pick up so much around us of really being conscious of that. and really connecting with the energy was really important to me. So self Reiki is definitely something that I promote, something that I teach. I don't do a lot of, the activating or teaching. I want to teach people how to take their healing into their own hands at the end of the day, because what I do isn't special. Like, you can do it too. And that is really like the approach that I take. Working with herbs for me, I focus a lot on nervines because my issue with fibro is, the nervous system. And in today's day and age, we all could use a little bit of love on our nervous system. We're constantly being bombarded with stimuli and choices to be made, like that we can never make, thousands and thousands of streaming. I think there's something like millions of podcasts, out there. There's just so much that it can be so overwhelming for us. And so, really looking for me, I really focus especially on nervines that are like the tropo restorative, and those are called tonics. And what they do is you work with them over time. They're not like you take them immediately and all of a sudden you feel better. They build, it builds on each other, because sometimes we don't give enough credit to the fact that small steps consistently equal huge, massive changes. I mean, you can change your world in a couple of years just by making small, consistent steps. I stopped smoking cigarettes. I stopped, eating dairy. I stopped eating gluten over the span of 2 years, things that I didn't even think I could do, things I didn't want to do. And being able to do them, not that I was perfect every day, but I was learning my body. I was learning what my body could and could not handle, regardless of what emotional attachments I had to things, being able to move through those things. And so, I found a lot of help in my herbal allies to kind of help makes this space where I could do that exploration and that experimentation. And nervines were really helpful there. And I think probably one of the most popular nervines that people have is chamomile. And you think of chamomile and you're just like, oh, it's just something to kind of help you sleep. But there's so much that you can do in combination with chamomile. I mean, it's a beautiful plant. It's actually a very protective plant. It is known to be able to like protect the plants around it, actually. And so, you look at those types of things, with your plant and doing the research. I love looking up like the mythological, the legends around them, the mystical properties of plants, because it can be really telling. It gives you a different viewpoint of your new friend, new stories about your new friend. And I really love that practice, because I think that brings it more into our lives in a different way. Like, I don't think we realize how much these small shifts in perspective can change the way we look at ourselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I love that. So one, a story, one of my plant ally is very much nettles. And
Oh,
I have to laugh with my shamanic students about it, because it is the prickly plant that you get stung with that is going to make your skin react. And ultimately that stinging can cause the blood flow there and actually cause healing, right? And
yeah.
I've seen myself a lot in stinging nettles. Like, it's super nutritive. It's probably the highest mineral content plant in our
Mhm.
forest, right? And so it's super nutritive, but it will sting. And I
Yeah.
tell people oftentimes, like, that's my personality. Like,
I
I
love
might
that.
I might sting you a little bit, and it's gonna hurt because I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna tell you the truth. But in the end, it's gonna be super nutritive. And it's always funny the way nettles shows up in my life, because nettles, I know that if I see nettles, it's the right place to be. So,
I love that.
right? So I'm in a small town. I moved into a little cottage in town. It wasn't like in the forest by any means. And there's nettles growing all over the backyard. And I'm just like, this is it. This is my new house. I love nettles.
I
It's
love that.
right. And then I go and try to find a private school for my daughter, and there's nettles everywhere. The school administrator didn't even know what it was. Like, she had moved from California, and not even California, but she moved from a very urban place. And I'm like, all of this is nettles, and the children are going to get stung. But we can harvest it and we can make teas out of it for the kids, and it's going to be great. So don't worry. But but it was a sign for me. So I love how you can have these connections with your plant allies that are so deep, not only for yourself, like you can set that intention, like, okay, Nettles, I love you. I need you. I need you in my life. And I know that you're going to give me all of the things I need, not just the, black and white. Here are the medicinal properties of this
Yeah.
plant, but it's going to feed you on your soul level.
Yes.
And I love that so much about working with plants, especially if you know which one is like your top cheerleader in the plant world.
Absolutely. And it's funny you said nettles because I was like, I'm going to grow nettles this year. And none of the seeds that I did grew nettles. But you know what I got this year? I got nettles popping up in places that I didn't even plant them. And I was like, oh, thank you. And you know what? She stung me every single time I got anywhere near her. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? Why do you keep stinging me? And she just wanted me to know her. And so it was just like one of those beautiful connections that you get. Like there's, like you said, a reason why they pop up in your life. And that's always my recommendation if people are looking for a plant teacher is what is a plant? Because you don't have to consume a plant for it to be a teacher at the end of the day. So what is showing up in your life? Not just in the ground, but maybe you keep seeing pictures of it. Maybe you hear songs about it. There's so many different ways that it can kind of pop up, but I make that practice every spring. I go out and what is the first plant that makes itself known to me? And this year it was yarrow. So I've spent a lot of time with yarrow and just didn't realize like, you put these plants in a box like you put people in a box.
Mhm.
And learning to take my plants out of that has helped me learn to take people out of those boxes, to learn to take myself out of those boxes. And it's a very freeing feeling. Like we could just learn so much from our plant allies.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Talk about plant allies all day long. So tell me a little bit more about how is there any like I heard chamomile. Is there any other
Oh,
plants or nervines that generally speaking are like your go-tos? Like I feel like a lot of herbalists really need to meet the people that they're trying to support. Like it's really hard to make blanket recommendations. Do you find that too?
so, and I could tell you why. So, you've ever had like some sort of herb and you've recommended it to somebody and they're like, it doesn't work for me. Well, the reason why is because we're all different. And so the way I've learned herbs has been around herbal energetics. So it's understanding your own body's constitution because that really makes a difference with what herbs you're working with. If you are, so I am a very hot, no, no, I say that very cold. I'm very hot right now because I am going through menopause, but I'm normally a very cold and dry person. Menopause has screwed that all up. And so I have to watch what I put in my body because sometimes I make myself a little too dry because I normally have like this chronic dry throat. So a lot of nervines are very dry. And so because I work with so many, it tends to exasperate it. Like, and when you get really dry emotionally, like you're not like you don't have necessarily that sense of humor, you can be really getting dried out makes you more distracted. And so you have to find ways to kind of move that dial back. You're always trying to go to the center. And so that's why when you work with a lot of herbalists, they're like, I can't make this blanket statement of this is going to be good for you. But what I can say is there's so many nervines out there. And some of the really easy ones that I find that most people can work with are things like rose. Rose is a beautiful nervine, and there are so many different ways that we can work with that. But if we look at rose as like the plant, and it has like all of these prickly, and I'm thinking about the wild rose bushes because that's what I work with. And, I went and I spent days this summer working with rose, and it is the most intoxicating plant. And just being around it kind of lifts you up. The smell of it, as you have that, it's known as like an exhilarant, so it can help boost your mood and stuff like that. And it's also very protective because it has those thorns. When you think about the bush, it's protecting. It can protect whatever hides within it. And so it can help kind of build that protection and that space for you to work within when you get to work with it on a regular basis. And you can make some lovely elixirs. So you can infuse rose and honey. Like, and wild rose is like an aggressive plant. Like most people hate having it around. you can go to your school, whatever, and go and you can gather some and make some of this stuff yourself. And I feel like that's such a beautiful way to work with it, because what I noticed when I was working with Rose was that when I wasn't being thoughtful, when I wasn't in my body paying attention to what I was doing, I would get scratched. Those thorns would hit me. But when I was truly showing up and was present, that wouldn't happen. I was aware of what I was doing and engaging. And I thought, what a beautiful way to show me the difference of being present and being lost in my own world, and how that can affect my body, and how you can hurt yourself when you're not present in your body. And so it's those types of ways. So rose is another one I always recommend. Catnip is a beautiful one for people. It's actually one that we actually used to drink a lot of, that we don't anymore. It's great for the digestion. And there's a huge link between, our nervous system and the digestion. It's like another one of our brains in there. So I always kind of want to encourage people to pay attention to their digestion and what they're consuming, in so many different ways. A lot of the nourishing ones, if you don't have any type of gluten allergy, I love milky oats as a nourishing nervine, to be worked with. But one that I have found in the grocery stores these days that is beautiful and it's considered an adaptogen is Tulsi.
Mhm.
And Tulsi isn't one that's a real aggressive adaptogen, just because I just worry sometimes with the adaptogen, because we have um, I don't know, an inclination to give ourselves things that are going to help us keep going instead of taking the rest that we need. And Tulsi isn't so aggressive in that you will ignore your own needs so that you can keep going and going and going. But it will really help you make space. It really kind of I find it very grounding personally, really helping ground me in my body, really connects me with my root chakra. And it's one of those that is a tonic. So when you work with it over time, it can help build those reserves up and really helps nourish, the nervous system. So I could go on and on. I mean, there's just so many. I work with linden. Linden's very moistening, and sometimes our nervous systems are really dry, and so we need some of that help. So when I'm looking at herbs, I'm looking at like, what are their energetics? How does it match my own energetics? And then are we a good pair? Are we a good fit together? It's just like any other relationship. I think if when we take it from that space, is I'm having a relationship with another entity, another intelligent entity. What is it like? And are we a good pair together? It's the same thing we do with humans.
Yeah, I said like a true animist, right? Like, beautiful. Well, and I love that, and it made me recognize in my daughter. I have a very neurodivergent 10-year-old, and she was been obsessed with rose for a long time, and rose ceremonies and rose water and picking rose hips. And when she was in like preschool, they had a rose hip garden, it seemed like, because they had these beautiful rose hips. I've never seen them so big. They're like gumballs. And so every November, you're picking these gumball size rose hips, and they serve them every day at tea at this little Waldorf school. And like, I just feel really fortunate for her to have grown up in that like connection with the plants and all of the things that you just mentioned. I'm like, I'm a good mom. She knows every single one of those. Right.
Right.
And when we can step into that as part of our parenting, like, let's teach respect not only to the animals, but to the plants and to the earth and to our connection there of going. We humans have created such a hierarchy of value of society, like how society and our culture has tried to ingrain in us that we're better than. And
Yeah.
once we come down to Mama Earth, when we say hello to Pachamama and just be like, no, no, we're just as valuable as all of these creatures that walk, slither,
Yeah.
fly, grow on this beautiful earth that we call home. And so thank you so much for sharing that wisdom, because it just made me reflect on so many happy memories.
I love that. And, I wish, because for me, there was a lot that I did very differently. My kids are 8 years apart. And so the first one got a very different mother than the second one has had. And, to see that growth and that change and the value of being able to do it differently, you see the values that they have as well. And, especially my oldest, how much they've changed as I've also changed. It's allowed them to open themselves up to different things that they were not necessarily had in their lives, because was a very different person. I was very, very uptight, because I was trying to live somebody else's life. And when you're trying to live somebody else's life and you're trying to do it all right, you get you're very tense about things. And so that actually probably led to the very tense nervous system over time. But I think it's beautiful when we see these next generations coming, and I have so much hope for them. And I just want to be able, me personally, like when I look at these next generations, I just want them to know that there's those of us out there that are learning to serve in a way that we can be of value to them when they're ready.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I see so much of my story in your story because I have, my children are 6 years apart. I have my own chronic health issues and all of the things. So I'm just really grateful for you coming on the show today and sharing all of your wisdom. I'm wondering if the listeners out there want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
So I do have a website called Hidden Hollow Holistics, and it's with an X at the end, not a C. And I also have that same handles on Instagram and Facebook. And so I'll definitely make sure to share those things with you. I do one-on-ones with people, just explorations is what I call them, because we're just exploring together. I'm not special. I believe that we all have these same capabilities within us. It's finding people to sometimes show us different tools, because different things work with different people. I like to make very low cost, accessible things, as well for people, because I was one of those people. I was someone that didn't have a lot to be able to start. And so I do really focus on low cost, no cost, resources that I give people. And this the things that I make. I love doing like these. I do digital workbooks and journals because, yes, you can journal, but that can be like talk therapy sometimes. And so having questions that you can actually sit down and ask yourself and explore with yourself can be really helpful. I do one actually on animism, because I find that it is such a beautiful thing to connect people with nature, and how healing that is, like in ways that we just don't even know sometimes, because we've been so disconnected from it. So yeah, you can reach me on Facebook or any of the, grams, and, online. I do free consultations with people. I do a number of free engagements every quarter, just because, I definitely believe in, the power of trade and bartering. And I believe that we all have something valuable that we can bring to the table at the end of the day. And so never hesitate to reach out if anybody has questions.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Juanita, for being with us. I really appreciate all of your wisdom and knowledge that you shared today. And many blessings on your business and your continuously holding space for others as they explore and get curious in their own healing journeys. So thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for the work that you do. I find it so incredibly valuable to the healing journey for all of us.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much.